Guterres says not a drop of aid has entered Gaza for more than a month as the floodgates of horror have reopened. Describing Gaza as a killing field, with civilians in an endless death loop.
In times like these, we must be crystal clear. Clear about the situation. With crossing points into Gaza shut and aid blockaded, security is in shambles and our capacity to deliver has been strangled. And as the heads of UN humanitarian organizations declared in a joint statement yesterday, and I quote, assertions that there is now enough food to feed all Palestinians in Gaza are far from the reality on the ground, and commodities are running extremely low. End of quote. We must also be clear about the obligations. As the occupying power, Israel has unequivocal obligations under international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law.
He cited Article 55 of the Fourth Geneva Convention that the occupying power had the duty of ensuring the food and medical supplies of the population if the resources of the occupied territory were inadequate. Or Article 56, that to the fullest extent of the means available, the occupying power had the duty of ensuring and maintaining the medical and hospital establishments, public health and hygiene in the occupied territory.
It further states that medical personnel of all categories shall be allowed to carry out their duties. And Article 59, paragraph 1st of the Fourth Geneva Convention provides that, and I quote, if the whole or part of the population of an occupied territory is inadequately supplied, the occupying power shall agree to relief schemes on behalf of the said population that shall facilitate them by all means at its disposal. End of quote. None of that is happening today. No humanitarian supplies can enter Gaza. Meanwhile, at the crossing points, food, medicine and shelter supplies are piling up and vital equipment is stuck.
On a new Israeli proposal for a structured monitoring and aid entry mechanism for Gaza, which COGAT, the arm of the military that facilitates humanitarian initiatives, says will enhance oversight and accountability and ensure assistance reach the civilian population in need and was not diverted by Hamas. This was the UN chief's response.
UN agencies and our partners are ready and determined to deliver. But Israeli authorities' newly proposed authorization mechanisms for aid delivery risk further controlling and callously limiting aid down to the last calorie and grain of flour. Let me be clear, we will not participate in any arrangement that does not fully respect the humanitarian principles, humanity, impartiality, independence and neutrality. Unimpeded humanitarian access must be guaranteed, and humanitarian personnel must be given the protection that they are accorded under international law. The inviolability of United Nations premises and assets must be respected. And I call once again for an independent investigation into the killing of humanitarians, including UN personnel.
What's happening in Gaza as a genocide?
And on the question of genocide in Gaza.
I think that the situation is sufficiently horrible not to be worried with the semantics. There is a competence of the International Court of Justice, and the International Court of Justice was seized exactly in relation to that. And the International Court of Justice is a body of the UN, and I respect the decisions of the International Court of Justice.
Acknowledging that the world was running out of words to describe the situation in Gaza.
The Secretary General also stated that the current path in Gaza was a dead end and totally intolerable in the eyes of international law and history. He lamented the additional risks of the occupied West Bank transforming into another Gaza and making the entire situation much worse in the region. Guterres called for an end to the ongoing dehumanization, for the protection of civilians, the release of all remaining hostages, and a renewal of a ceasefire that for 2 months brought a reprieve to the acute suffering earlier this year. Sherwin Riceby's SABC News, New York.